Well, here we are, 9 a.m., bright and early, on a chilly Wednesday morning, and we're back at it again. I'm your host, Ryan Pierce, Louisiana Delta Community College, School of Business and Technology, presenting Global Entrepreneurship Week, and today we have a gentleman who's no stranger to entrepreneurship, but also no stranger to production, as far as it relates to video, audio, all that stuff. We were just geeking out a minute ago as you walked in and you said, hey, what kind of microphone is this? What kind of mixer is that? And so that was kind of fun just to talk back and forth about that too. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. or Professor, I should say, Brien Dunn.
Hey, insert applause.
Exactly, right. I always say I'm going to
Wait,
get
who's
that.
booing? Calm down.
Yeah. So, Professor Dunn, we're so appreciative of you being on the show. Global Entrepreneurship Week, first time we've done something like this, but I have a feeling it won't be the last. It's been a ton of fun. And so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, tell us who you are and give us a little backstory.
Well, my name is, first off, thanks for having me. It's really a privilege to be invited here to do this, and really excited about it, and I am geeking out with the equipment. But my name is Brien Dunn, and I've been teaching college for over 20 years and taught high school prior to that. And prior to that, I was in the business world out in Dallas, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. And so cut my teeth on in a pretty highly competitive business environment. So lots of interest in teaching entrepreneurship and all the other things that I teach here allows me to pursue those varied interests in one way or the other. So
it seems like, when we think about entrepreneurship, half the time that drive to be a small business owner stems from the fact that you're not quite satisfied in any one area, right? You're not satisfied in any one business or industry. You have so many talents, you have so many gifts to give, so many things to share with the world almost, that no one thing can hold you back, and so you end up pursuing a whole lot of things. How does that work? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Does that sometimes make it to where you're scattered sometimes and you can't really focus on one, or what's your experience with that?
Well, while you were setting that up, the phrase blessing and a curse just was scrolling through my mind. It can be a real blessing as far as, you explore things. You're listening, you're open to ideas and things and activities, and that's great, But then when you really get ready to focus on something, you've got to, and this is a really interesting point you bring up right early on here. You've got to be able to really hyper-focus on developing something, one thing, and you've got to somehow resist the urge to, you got to tame that beast, that's saying, oh, no, I want to do everything. No, let's bring it home.
And it's funny that you say that, have one focus, right? Because it's like you never truly master, what you're after or that craft. Even if you have three things you want to master, you got to take it one step at a time. It's probably some sage advice, and we've talked about discipline in some of the previous episodes that we've done this week. And so you're kind of bringing up that same point. It's very, very interesting to hear it yet again. This being our fourth stream that we've done this week. So, Professor Dunn, as we continue on, I wanted to ask, and you may have already started to answer this question already, but what experiences, you kind of led Dallas or Texas, I think you said, and some other things, you cut your teeth in business on some things, and you're also military in the Air Force, correct?
Yep.
So I'm trying to get from you what experiences made you intrigued with the idea of starting your own business or owning your own business. What is it about that idea that had you say, okay, this is for me, this is the pathway for me?
Right. Yeah. Well, let's see. When I was in college, I started off. First off, I have a really strong technical side, and I have a really strong business creative side. I'm into music. I'm into, like we were just talking. I explore lots of things. But when I was in college, I focused on completing degrees in physics and math. And while I was doing that,
physics and math, that's heavy stuff.
I know. And yeah, so and I did. I finished degrees in both of those. And but during that process, I was involved in all kinds of things on campus. And reestablishing the Society of Physics students, oddly enough, was something that I fell into, and it had been dormant for years. And me being me, we got it together and had over 100 people, members in it, from all types of technical degrees around the campus. And we formed teams that went out to local schools, and we demonstrated. So I was that was me, and I was at the heart of it. I just loved that, putting it all together, seeing all the people, having the ideas, and
like
it was just.
You're an organizer.
Yeah.
You can get people together, around a cause, rally around a cause.
And I really that was my thing, man. And I discovered how much I loved that. So that led into pursuing a master's in business, and, with emphasis on management. And the really interesting thing that sent me down just an incredible path of learning all sorts of things was during my last semester of the Master's in Business program. I took a course. It was entrepreneurial, managerial. Anyway, the assignment in the course, one of the assignments, was to go out in the local community and find a business person with an idea that they had yet to develop but could use some help and support.
Okay.
So I was lucky enough to find a local doctor, and he had an idea of buying and selling used MRI, CT, X-ray equipment from American hospitals and selling them internationally to countries that would need it. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is right up my alley. Let's do this. Well, not only did we develop it, but I found some equipment in Illinois at a hospital and had it deinstalled. Had the MRI system deinstalled, packed up in a crate, and I found a buyer in Spain.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I ended up selling 12 more systems to the same customer in Spain after we pursued the company.
But here we go now, jack of all trades, right? So you're organizing, you're taking on this small business. Now you've become a professional salesman.
Yep.
You made him a ton of money, I presume.
Yep.
Hopefully you got a cut of that as a college student. I don't know if that's possible.
And the interesting thing was he got excited, and he had lots of other people with some investors and money, and we decided to really make this a thing, and we formed a business and moved to Dallas, Texas, and that's where I was for quite a few years developing that idea, and we were quite successful.
That's a hustle. That sounds like something. But again, what better time? You're exploring new horizons in college, and in fact, it was your master's degree program.
Yep.
So you were a little bit older, a little bit more mature, and then you guys connect, and it turns into a successful business venture, at least for a little while.
Yeah.
Which is really nice to hear. Wow. So I did not know that about you.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise, right? But there's probably a ton of things to learn. So as we continue, right? So that was one experience. Were there any other experiences that kind of made you think, well, owning a business, is my thing? Or as I asked in a previous discussion, did you seek out small business ownership, or did, entrepreneurship and that idea just kind of find you on its own?
Well, after we moved to Dallas, it was, it was just a whole new world. And Dallas, Texas is one of the most competitive business markets experiences you can possibly have in the entire country.
Wow, not New York, huh?
No, I'm sure that's true. But Dallas is well known for, big business, big business, big dollars, very competitive, cutthroat even in some industries.
Okay.
It was kind of interesting, being thrown into that pool, and we took it a step further. We decided to start our own chain of medical imaging centers. So we ended up having about 7 around the city, south, north, east, west Dallas, and with it, MRIs and CTs. And then that, as you get into that, you have to have people to market. So my role went from a natural progression went from the idea and doing the business plan for the facilities to more of a managerial. So I found myself suddenly managing 3 marketing people you know, and I would meet with them every morning. They would go out and market to doctors and attorneys. So it was just, everything was so fast, and it happened. And so, and it was fun. And, you know, talk about learning a lot. Oh my goodness, you know, you either sink or swim. And when you've got other people, other companies, you know, that are competing very aggressively with you, you know, you learn some valuable life lessons. Let's just say that.
Life lessons. Okay. I'm wondering if you're going to tell us those life lessons. You're saying, yeah, right. But you're going to learn not only mostly things about yourself, I would presume, right? You know, how to handle some of the stresses. I can imagine if you have multiple locations in a metropolitan area as big as Dallas,
Yep.
and it's only gotten bigger.
Yep.
Now and then instead of being, you're a founder in the company.
Yeah.
You're the one that's doing all the work. Then all of a sudden you have a team. Now you have to, if you don't already have management skills, you have to try to learn some leadership skills along the way, understand personalities and psychology, and this just a ton of things. So you grew, and it makes a lot of sense now, because whenever I've watched you teach entrepreneurship face to face before, and I've listened to you talk about it, and you've basically been through the gambit from, you know, the beginning, I'm an owner, it's just me, or it's just me and one other person, to then managing teams of people.
Definitely.
You've seen the whole thing, and I'm assuming you've seen the financials as well, and you know how that works, because I know you're a big stickler for making sure that any student that comes from your class, they are financially sound with their business plans. So I may be skipping around there and what we're talking about, but that experience alone sounds just incredible. And actually, I was going to ask, I think you kind of started to talk about it, what types of small businesses have you operated? And you just said this one was in the medical field.
Yeah.
What others maybe have you?
Well, you know, the sales and service side of what we did, you know, that was its own thing, you know, so we had teams that would go around and deinstall and install and ship and provide parts and service, and then, you know, international shipping. So it was just a lot on that side. And then we had also the other side we developed was, you know, our own medical imaging centers. So we had to, you know, find space, build outs, and you know, leasing and you know, marketing locations and hiring people. And you know, one thing I really learned about myself is I really don't like dealing with everyone calling me sick or out or can't or late or what. Man, that really gets old quick.
Right, because you were relying on those folks to do a job. It's so important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an idea, you know, person. I like putting things together, and you know, I like making it. I mean, that's the world I lived in for a long time out there, and luckily we ended up hiring managers that could deal with, you know, the personnel stuff, and that freed me up a little bit. But you know, I think focusing on the marketing and meeting the doctors and the attorneys and stuff, that was fun.
You wanted to do the things that got you jazzed, that woke you up in the morning. There's certain people that love order and the written word and documents and processing and that, and that's why we're all unique, because we need all of it. And then there's others that are creatives, and that sounds like the bag that you were coming out of.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I think one of the traits that is required for an entrepreneur is, you know, like I was just, you know, what excited me was, you know, the marketing, and that's fine. That's what I liked, and I could focus on it, and we hired people to do the other things. But here's the thing: if you're in charge, you have to fully recognize and embrace that having people that accounting is their thing, having people that finance is their thing, you know, around you, and understanding the importance of those things, that's really critical to success. So I don't think you can have a successful entrepreneur that doesn't value and appreciate those things in other people. And consequently, flip the coin over, you know, recognizing that you might not be strong in those areas and you need help. That's important. You know, recognizing your weaknesses but really running and using your strengths too. So
absolutely. All right. So, you know, sort of just some questions that I had that I thought of, and you can take this conversation in any direction you want to take it. But as I'm asking as I'm thinking about things, and of course we got lighting situation going on here, so I'll fix that in just a moment.
It's all right.
Bottom line is, you teach entrepreneurship as well as other things. Why is it important in your mind? What is the civic duty that you're undertaking, or why is it so important to you to teach these principles to students, young or old? What makes you say, hey, this is important and I love this stuff and I want to give my all when I'm teaching my small business management class, whether online or in person? Why is it so important to teach these principles?
Well, I think there are lots of people with really wonderful, great ideas. And the vast majority of those people, may never be in a position where they're able to learn the skills and task and have the knowledge to develop some of those ideas. So, I mean, just imagine how many wonderful, groundbreaking, earth-shattering, life-altering ideas have just withered and died, and we'll never know.
That's true.
We'll never know about it. I mean, somebody could have, figured out how to solve world peace, and I don't know, and they just, no skills to develop it or take anything to the next level, or it's just an example. But as far as why teach it, I think that's the core of it, is empowering people, students to develop these ideas. Now, keep in mind, not every idea that pops into your head is a good idea, and you have to really recognize that. And just because everybody likes grandma's crochet things does not mean that grandma needs to open a business doing that. Everybody likes them, but will it work as a business? And that's part of the thing we have to recognize is how do you take that thing and turn it into a profitable, self-sustaining business, and that's not easy. It requires a foundation, as you well know, in accounting, business, economics, finance, and marketing. So you need to spend some time really learning the knowledge base contained in those subjects. And then in the entrepreneurship course, at least the way I view it, this is your opportunity to kind of take what you learned and see how it all works together, and how you can, really run with it, how you can use it, how you can benefit from it in your own life. How does this stuff really work in at least a semi-real world situation in our class? Because we, develop business plans and stuff. So you really get to put things together, I think, more in an entrepreneurship class than you might some other things.
It's almost like a capstone if you think about it. It's like you just said, you're going to pull in, it's important for you to have a foundation in accounting, management, marketing principles, economics, which was interesting. I never heard you say that before, but economics, which isn't a requirement necessarily at LDCC for you to take that, but still a good class to take, and we'll count towards your graduation, just in case anybody's wondering, right? It will count. So that's interesting, and all those things wrapped together. Then you come to the small business class and you apply those. So like I said, a capstone application type of scenario where you can apply all those principles, and you'll show the students how to shape their ideas into something that can actually work, and presumably into a business plan.
Right. Yep, definitely.
Now, in your class specifically, and this is, I think, is going to be valuable information for just entrepreneurs as a whole, but in your class, what are the keys to success? And I think, again, these are translatable skills probably beyond just the classroom. But what are the key elements to success in your entrepreneurship class? If somebody's coming in, besides having a background in all these other areas, is there something else that you would tell somebody they need to be ready to do or be ready to sacrifice even?
Well, let's see. In the class, we do, I have lots of different activities every week. So pretty much we have a new chapter every single week. And this new chapter will be, a different topic, and we'll have usually a case study where you research some entrepreneurs, some business idea that's, developed or failed, and you'll write a little small paper on what you found and your thoughts about it. So that's one thing. We learn you have to create your own, come up with three business ideas that maybe you've been thinking about over the years, or maybe you just ask around at the beginning of the class, ask family and friends to help you come up with some ideas. Anyway, you get some ideas, and we decide together which one of those ideas you're going to develop for the semester. And then we have weekly assignments that help you develop those ideas using the industry standard, which used to be called Business Plan Pro, but it's now called Live Plan. So you learn how to utilize that business standard software while building on your business idea over the week. And at the end, you'll have a completed business plan. And in fact, that's where the group this semester is right now. They're right at the end of it, and they're wrapping up their business plans. Now, used to, if we do it live, this is pre-COVID, we did a lot of live stuff, but we would have them, as we would invite people in to watch students present things. We don't really do that now since it's online, although I'm still toying around with some ways to do that, but it's not required at the moment for them to do that.
I want to ask this question. You've seen a lot of business plans. You've seen lots of ideas.
Yep.
I actually had the privilege of being in class once or twice and judging some of those as well.
Yeah.
What are some of the ideas that students have had that come to mind that you thought, man, if they would actually run with this might go somewhere? Or just in general, what are some of the more memorable business plans that you've come across?
That's a really good question.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
if there are any alumni watching, okay, we're sorry if we forgot you.
No, man, there's so many memorable ones, but one that's just for some reason coming into mind, and probably because I spoke 2 days ago at the salon, the beauty
styling,
styling event. And so I was thinking about this a lot. So that's probably why this is popping into my head. But I had a student come through with just an incredible idea to set up a salon, where it was one side was, like an entertainment bar type, relaxation type environment. But the way he built it, there was this big old glass partition between it. Those have you ever seen those glass cubes that you can stack? They're like cinder blocks. Yeah. And everything's kind of blurry through them, but you can see things on the other side.
Okay.
So he had designed it, and I just thought it was so creative. He had designed it where one side, you show up and you get your drinks and you sit down and have, just whatever you're going to do. And then you're called and your number's up or name or whatever, and you go sit down on the other side and they take care of your hair. And, it wouldn't be a cheap place to go,
not at all,
but it would definitely be a really unique experience to get your hair done. So the way he was so passionate and described it and designed it, I was like, man, this is so cool. So that one just pops into my head immediately. I've had literally hundreds of plans. So developing car washes, restaurants, food trucks. There's been so many really unique ones come through in the food industry.
Has anyone ever made you sign an NDA because they thought their idea was so powerful?
Actually, yeah.
A non-disclosure agreement?
Well, no. A few years ago, it was a local. I don't want to say too much because I did sign something, but it was, let me think, it was a medical company, I could say this, that sent one of their employees to take the course and to develop a plan for a new division that they were wanting to start. And so yeah, that was interesting. And, I knew that going into it, and so it was interesting. I had to treat that student a little differently, but, given that. So, but it was great. You talk about focused and intense. They really had to produce.
Right. Their job depended on it.
Yeah, they were being paid to be there taking the course too. So it was interesting. Yep.
Okay. Any entrepreneurial pursuits that have come to light or maybe come to life from the class, I wonder. And or maybe, and a second question would be, have you been able to keep in touch with some of the students, and kind of track their progress and follow along, with what they're doing?
I get contacted all the time, past students, telling me they're now doing this and pursuing this business idea, that idea, and they got started, right here at Delta, taking our courses and taking the entrepreneurship course. So absolutely, from car washes to pharmacies to restaurants to the aforementioned medical company expansion thing.
I'm assuming you get a lot of similar concepts. I mean, I would think that opening up your own restaurant would probably be popular, or food trucks, because that's something that students, you see it on a regular basis. Like if I'm purchasing food, if I'm enjoying the atmosphere and the ambiance in a particular eatery, and I'm doing that on a semi-regular basis, even if it's once a week, that's forefront of my mind. Like, man, I can cook this. I know how to do this at my house. I can turn that into a, and I know that that's not always as easy as, I'm just going to make it happen. But
that's a recipe to lose a lot of money right there. That's what that is.
So it's okay to try, though. It's okay to try. But and we were talking in some of the previous episodes and some of the previous conversations about, again, how important it is to have a plan, work the plan, write it all down, and just and really just take your time on that front, because from your plan, your business plan is basically your strategic plan.
Yeah.
And you're going to implement and execute that, going forward, and that's how you're going to get your funding and whatnot. If you don't mind, I remember sitting in on a few of those business plan presentations, and one thing that you would always harp on is, how are you going to get your money?
Yep.
What's the funding look like? Can you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts on why is it so important for those idea people to have the books in order on that business plan, and subsequently going forward in their pursuit in the real world?
Well, I mean, when you having the idea is one thing, and like creating if you do some product, you create a prototype. I mean that that's a big deal. But that ends up being actually the easy part.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
Of starting a business. No. Yeah, I mean the hard part is the implementation. The hard part is getting all the elements to come together correctly so that it will work. And anywhere from the finance, the accounting, the legal, the site location, marketing, all those things, working with your banks and stuff. So it's to address your question, though, with the funding, you need to have a really good relationship with a bank. That's important. Not that you're going to get all your money from a bank. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you will find yourself needing that resource as a small business owner for sure. But let me mention, if anybody's listening that knows, these issues, they're probably going to think I'm glad he said that. But let me say, just for the record, that there are two general types of money for business people to be aware of.
It never hurts to hear it multiple times. Two types.
You get money to start your business through either debt, that's contacting a bank, and a loan, and you pay a monthly note, and they do not own any of your business. Or actually, sometimes nowadays that's not always the case, but generally speaking, 99% of the time they're not going to own anything. You just pay a note. And then the other way to get money is through equity. So you got debt money and equity money in a new business. And the equity money is from, at least initially, it's quite often from friends and family and people that believe in you and what you're doing and want to be a part of it. And, you're able to motivate and get excited that you've got what it takes to make this work. But that money comes with equity money comes with a price too. You don't pay a note every month, but you give up ownership in your company. So, let's say Uncle Bob, says, hey, I'll give you $20,000, and because I want to help you, and I think this will work, but Uncle Bob wants 20% of the company. So
There's strings attached, right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
of course, mixing family in it can be a little dicey. But
sure can.
I remember, again, because I've listened to you talk a few
Mhm.
times, and the fact that you include the option
Mhm.
for your students to consider, right? We're not just thinking about the banks and the traditional lines of credit and debt, but we're thinking about who can I ask
Yeah.
who may want to sponsor me, at least initially, maybe play a venture capital role in some regards. And it can be family, it can be friends. That's not always comfortable. And I know me personally, I probably wouldn't go that route, but it's important to highlight that there are other ways
Yes.
to fund your startup.
Especially nowadays. I mean, crowdfunding is a big,
Oh, that's a big one.
thing.
Yeah.
And we talk about that. So things are definitely evolving. I mean, you can go online at any time and research, just search for, new business ideas on various sites that specialize in this, crowdfunding sites. And, you can find someone with an idea putting something together, and they'll offer this or that to you if you'll put up some money. And it's that easy. I mean, it's incredible how quickly a good idea can get off the ground and be fully funded. And sometimes if you watch these on these crowdfunding sites, some of these ideas not only get fully funded, but they'll get 2-3 times what they were asking for. Now, they need to deliver, and they have it all outlined, what they're going to do for people that put up this or that money. So finding people to put up money is actually not as difficult as someone might think. But you've got to recognize that there are certain professional norms that, you got to learn about. And that's the stuff you're going to learn in this entrepreneurship class. For example, if you approach a bank and, you want, support money for this or that, the first thing they're going to do is ask you, where's your plan? Where's your business plan? And they're going to want to see that. And in fact, any investor worth their salt is going to want to know, the details about, what you're doing and who's working with you. They look a lot at your team, who you put together, the experience and the education of various team members. That's really important. They look at you under a microscope. Who are you? What are you doing? What's your experience level? What do you know? Are you someone that can really pull this off? So those things are really, really important. And the only way to really be exposed to that and to learn and to kind of pull it out of yourself a little bit is to throw yourself into a course like this. It will give you an opportunity without, losing all kind of money, it'll give you an opportunity to open yourself up and explore those possibilities, and just see, maybe I can learn this. Maybe I can do something like this.
I like how you said that. It's like a trial run.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on a few investing websites, and they say, hey, instead of putting real money in right now, let's just put in some pretend money. Well, this is a beta area where you can, sort of make some trades and whatnot, and then you can see how well you would come out of on the other side,
right? And
then you can go and actually do it. And you're saying that treat the class in the same way.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, wow, I like the way that analogy went over.
Yep.
So we're here live with Professor Brien Dunn for Louisiana Delta Community College, and this is Global Entrepreneurship Week 2022, our first ever one. We're so happy to have you on. And again, I think you started getting into these as we continue along with the questions. My next question was, so what are your thoughts overall on what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur? I think you started talking about that, but then if you would, kind of carry us through again, maybe referencing some personal experience or some things you've seen out there in the field, what are the things to do from your lens? What are the things to avoid? If you don't mind, sharing that with us.
Right. Okay. I was thinking about this earlier. I think the word persistence is just, that's the thing.
I like that.
You've got to be able to persist. You've got to be able to take the knocks and take the rewards and persist. And that word, that drive, that thing requires, all sorts of things from you: motivation, internal, It requires things in your life to be, sort of in order that will allow you to persist. So
True.
there's a lot that kind of trickles down from you being able to do that. And that's part of it, figuring out what changes you need to make to be in a position to do something like that, to be persistent with an idea. I think the ability to focus, and we mentioned this already in the program, the ability to focus on developing the idea is just critical. Listening to other people. If there's one trait that almost every single successful entrepreneur has in common, it's that. It's the ability to listen. And if you watch successful entrepreneurs, and in interviews and speeches and just walking, whatever, it's interesting that you will see them actively listening to people over and over and over again. I mean, when asked to speak and talk about what they'll tell you, but they will shut up and listen because they know something really important. They know that they don't know everything. That's what they know. And that is a critical thing to learn in life, especially if you're starting a new business. Knowing when to follow advice and then knowing when to stick to your guns or plot your own path, that line, that difference is really critical. And you really need to get it right. And that takes you understanding and acknowledging what you're good at, your strengths and your shortcomings. You be clear about what you like to do and what you don't like to do, and be able to recognize that someone genuinely knows more than you do about this, particularly like accounting. Oh my God, I'm not an accountant. That's not me. So having people do accounting for a business, that's really important because it has to be right. I mean, there's some legal issues, and this has to be right.
And I want to stop just for a second. I'll
Sure.
pause. Those are some key elements that you just spoke to.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking about listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said active listening.
Right.
So it's one thing to be quiet.
Yep.
And it's one thing to sort of let the information wash over you. But then how do we make it stick? If you're there listening intently, I mean, is that enough? Are we going back and writing notes about what we heard? How do we make sure that we don't forget the pivotal parts of that conversation? You might think, well, it's easy if it resonated, then you will stick. But maybe there's some that, man, I heard something, it was really inspirational, but I can't really remember what was said. All I know is I felt really good afterwards. Do you have any tips on how to intently listen and actively listen and really remember what it is that you heard so that you can apply it in your endeavors, especially if you're an entrepreneur?
Well, I think to me, active listening is, you've really got to focus your mind on what's being said on that one person, and really, and that's a skill. Just saying that's one thing, but actually doing it, that's a learned skill. And I think something that I personally do, is, I kind of replay it as they say it. I try to, replay what they just said in my mind, and it's like constantly evaluating what's being said or proposed to you, and then understanding something really interesting, that sometimes the most outlandish thoughts and ideas from people that might seem unrelated to what you're doing or what those things, oddly enough, can come back later if you're actively listening and just connect some dots in your brain. And that's formally what's called the eureka moment, is when two seemingly different ideas that are in your brain that, again, seem to have no connection, suddenly you see the connection. Nobody else has seen it. You see it. You make that unique connection. That's a eureka moment. And to have those moments requires you to listen to people, put yourself in environments that are new, be open to listening to all sorts of ideas. That is so critical. So listening, actively listening, and being able to incorporate that into what you already know and connect the dots, man, that's where some of the biggest things. For example, I'll give you a good example here. Well, we've had so many in American history. The automobile. I mean, there were people that literally could not wrap their head around what Mr. Ford was suggesting. He was suggesting that, you could actually move down the road, move down the trail without a horse pulling you. Can you imagine that? And people just could not. There were so many people that could not wrap their head around something moving without a horse pulling it. There was just no experience, no nothing. So he had to do these, we talk about this in the course, he had to do these show and tells where they brought these horseless carriages, as they were called, to these towns and to display that to people. And that's how new ideas, people connecting the dots with seemingly different ideas can be, perceived and, by people. Sometimes it takes a bit, like the PC. I mean, there was a long time where people, it was presented that, and IBM turned this down. There wasn't, even by a company like IBM, they were world known for building massive computing systems. There was a time where they were presented with the idea that individual people could have a need for their own computers. And they were like, no. Computers are for big institutions and governments. That's what we do. We build big things. No. We really think that people could have their own personal computers, PCs. People presenting that idea had the door slammed in their face over and over and over. And of course, we now know the company Apple, that was part of their legacy. They, Steve Jobs and a guy named Steve Wozniak, that was their deal. They saw, that, the individual person would want to buy a computer. And that was just, today it's laughable that, of course I need a computer. Why wouldn't I need a computer? But at some point that was just insanity for someone to propose that.
Right. It's like we need both of those things. The two very big developments or inventions, the horseless carriage / automobile and a computer that didn't take up an entire room, but instead could be brought to the house and utilized on a personal level as opposed to just for business. That right there, those two things, that's you have to have those now in 2022 or depending on where you live. But that seems to be, we have computers in our pockets because
I know.
They're cell phones. They've changed over, and it's not even that it has to sit on your desk or even in your lap. It's just in your back pocket.
And even when that was, that's probably, you just hit up on probably the biggest one. Example is, I show that video as part of the course. Steve Jobs, he's passed away now, but Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, one of the founders of Apple, he, presented, there was a speech, and probably the most famous entrepreneurial speech ever given to date. He gave a speech introducing the iPhone for the first time. And the way if you haven't seen that, I challenge you, go on YouTube and search for Steve Jobs Presents the iPhone and watch that. And people in the audience, that were techies, people that should know what's going on. He was still presenting something that was just, people hadn't connected the dots yet. You can have, an internet browser and a phone and a way to chat and text, so you don't have to carry around pagers. You can have all that in one device. And stuff like that, people having those ideas, connecting the dots, and to bring it back to what we were saying, being persistent enough to really follow through and develop those things. And it takes time.
I feel like one of the other things you're honing in on, we talked about certainly funding for a little bit of this, and then now we're getting on the communication piece of it, right? And communicating your ideas and trying to make it make sense and connect the dots. How often do you find that people have really, really good ideas, but they need a team of of other individuals who are more maybe outgoing or know how to communicate, maybe even advertise those ideas. Talk a little bit, you don't have to talk too long, but just how important, again, that communication piece is, when it comes to expressing your ideas, because like you said before, that could be the difference between an idea or an invention seeing the light of day, being picked up, getting funded, or not. And then we never know what that is.
Yep. Well, let's see. I see all sorts of students come through the course and business people, and I think, people have the idea, and then the question is, what does it take really to be that person that can follow through? I think that's really what you're asking me, I think. And, part of my job, I see it, when I deal with the students and stuff, I've done this so long, I can kind of tell, if they're walking down the right road or not, in other words, I kind of know where to push a little bit. And one of the things I like doing is I like establishing fairly early on, very intentionally so, that I'm not going to tell you the answer to everything. I want you to have it. There's an entrepreneurial trait here. I want you, if you need to know something, I want you to be able to have that drive and determination to go find out, to figure it out. It's a little bit of throwing you out of the nest approach, but in an entrepreneurial class, it's really, really important that you don't have people, or that you can break that habit, if people have that habit of just asking something and not exerting any effort at all to figure it out on their own, just sitting still and waiting for someone to sugar feed them a response. You will not be an entrepreneur if that's the way you approach life. I can promise you that would be a death knell to the whole thing. So you've got to have that drive to go figure out how to answer questions, important questions needed to persist, to move your idea forward.
And I know that could be a struggle sometimes as a student, because you feel like, I don't know what questions to ask. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a fish out of water. I don't even know where to start.
Yep.
And you're in the class trying to get those students to realize that, okay, yes, it's okay to feel that way.
Yep, that's right.
But you are going to have to, put your big boy or big girl pants on.
That's it. Yep.
And find a way to figure it out. Ask
That's
questions, consult with others, whatever it's going to take for you to get over the hump of panic,
right,
and go into the mode of, okay, nothing's going to hold me back.
And it's really interesting. I think a lot of people taking an entrepreneurial course, they learn a lot about themselves over a semester. Because there's so many assignments, so many lessons, and so many things that they need to do each week, to build their plans and stuff. I think people, in an ideal thing, hopefully students have this experience, that they can really use this as an opportunity to open up and discover, really, learn more about themselves, as, self-motivating, driving, again, focusing, persistence, all those things we've already talked about a lot. But, for me, creating the situations within the assignments, within the class itself, so that people have those experience opportunities, I guess that's kind of where I'm at as the instructor. I really want and try very hard to create those opportunities for them to go through something, not know it, maybe be frustrated. That's fine. You know what? Frustration, you know what that's a sign of? That's a sign that someone is learning. That's a sign that someone don't know. They need to know, and they're experiencing that natural thing within themselves that, I don't know this, but I really want to know it, and what do I need to do? And it's not coming to me instantly. I'm going to have to work. That's frustration. But knowing how to handle that, knowing to recognize it for what it is, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Use that as a motivator, a driver. So creating those situations is fine. So if I do something, something, and somebody sends me a little terse email, well, I just can't, and I don't know, and this, and you won't tell, and that's fine. I'll try to console them as much as I can, but this is part of the process. I really want you to explore that, and I want you to step up, and it's part of being, learning to be an entrepreneur and think entrepreneurially. That's part of it.
Wow. Yeah. So again, students, whether you're LDCC students or students at another institution, student of life, right?
Yep.
If the answers aren't there for you, that there's a reason behind that, and it's going to help to build you up in some way. It's going to help make you stronger.
It's your if you can get to a point where you can kind of be an observer of yourself in those moments, man, you've got some power. Because if you can see yourself and how you react and don't react to those type moments in your life, that's power. Man, that's when you learn. That's when you learn right there.
So I think my last question, you're so good at just kind of segueing right on into it, but if you were to talk to an entrepreneur and you had like one time to talk with them, maybe 30 minutes or something, but in this case you probably have only 2 minutes, right? Yeah. Do you have any words of wisdom for the aspiring business owner? Are there any final thoughts to wrap up the conversation this morning?
Absolutely. All right. The thing I would tell someone wanting to walk down an entrepreneurial path in life, in other words, take an idea and develop it. So when I think of entrepreneur, that's what I mean in my head. Take an idea and make it happen. I think you have to understand that this is the beginning of a journey for you. You've got some personal growth that's going to happen, and you need to really understand that you've got to be open to that, and understand that you don't know everything and that you will need other people to help make things happen. But really, I mean, you've got to understand that you need to learn the knowledge, the core issues, like we've already mentioned so many times, of accounting, of finance, of marketing and management, all those things. You've got to learn that knowledge base somehow. And a college setting is a great way to do that. Learning those things. You're in a structured environment and you're learning, you're focused on certain material with assignments. I mean, that's why we're here. That's what we do. We impart that knowledge. So I think probably the first thing is you need to put yourself in a situation for a period of time where you can be exposed to how these things are done in our society. And there are certain norms and stuff. You just got to know this. Second thing is you've got to learn to write a business plan. And it always cracks me up. You can find anything on YouTube.
Anything.
You can find anything. So if you go to YouTube and you type, do I need a business plan? Question. Type that in. You know what? Surprise, surprise. You will get 10,000 videos probably that will be, telling you all the reasons why you do not need a business plan. Okay. But you know what? It cracks me up watching those, because here's the thing. You watch somebody talking about it and it always pops into my head. Yeah, but it's not your money. It's my money. That's all nice what you're saying. You don't need one, and they heard about this person that did this and that. Well, I'm very happy that person got lucky, but you know what? This is my money. So the point of the business plan is to shake the tree. That's the point of the business plan. The business plan allows you to think about every detail of the business and shake the tree, and hopefully some bad apples will fall down, and you won't make mistakes. You will make mistakes. Let me retract that. But make fewer critical mistakes, particularly ones involving your money. So doing a business plan will help you, or will keep you from wasting a lot of time and money, especially pursuing something that won't work. For example, there are students that come through that do a business plan, and in the process of doing the plan, they kind of discover that it's not going to be profitable.
Right.
So guess what? great. That's fine. Don't be sad. That's great. The business plan process just kept you from making a major mistake. So that's great. Come on, let's do something else. All right, that's the approach you have with that. Okay, fine. That didn't work. Let's do something. All right, a few other things. I jotted down some notes for this.
You were prepared. See, this is your own plan you brought in here.
With this question in particular, if you are dealing with other people's money, investors, you need to, and this is words of wisdom is what you were asking me for a new business owner or entrepreneur. If you're dealing with other people's money, that means they've put some trust in you, and they've considered you trustworthy. So trust is earned. You've got to and it's earned every day. Just because you have someone's trust today doesn't mean you will have that trust the next day. You've got to be consistent and earn that trust over time. And to do that, just operate, on a high ethic level, every day, everything you do, people are watching you. If you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, and you're pushing new ideas and you're talking to people, believe me, people are watching you. People are talking about you, and you've got to have that standard of conduct. That's what will earn that trust. And particularly running a little bit further with that, if you are fortunate enough to have other people give you money to produce, to develop an idea that you might have, take that very, very seriously, very with a high responsibility. Know where every penny's going, and be responsible as if it was your own money for sure, or more so. And let them know that you do take it that seriously, and you appreciate all that. So that's a big one. And establishing that credibility, that trustworthiness, having a high ethic, really watching other people's money and time. Also, don't waste people's time, and that's an important thing. And probably the last thing I'll say on this topic is creativity. That's such a big thing, and we haven't mentioned that yet today. And I definitely would feel bad if I left here and not saying something. And you and I talked together about this a couple of days ago when I was giving a presentation. But creativity is the spice of life. Every one of us is creative. Every one of us can have ideas, really cool, unique, fun ideas. Everyone, if you think back on your childhood, you were born creative. Every person was creative or is creative. So then why am I not creative today? Why do I not feel creative? Well, that's because you allowed it to be buried beneath layer upon layer upon layer of life and responsibilities and things that happen and things you got to do, and I should and I would and I could and all that kind of stuff. But man, wouldn't it be fun to be able to put yourself in an environment like taking an entrepreneurship course that will allow you to have an opportunity to kind of relax and peel back those layers and be creative and say, I used to be creative. I can do it's here somewhere where, there it is. That's fun. To live a life and not be creative. I mean, wow, that's a depressing thought. I don't want to leave on a depressing thought, but man, do whatever you got to do to rediscover and ignite that creativity in your life. And it can be anything. It can be music, painting, ideas. It can be anything technical, electronics, whatever. It doesn't matter. Everybody can have their own area of creativity. So I would strongly encourage any new aspiring business owner to, allow themselves to feel that creativity, because that's going to just empower and impassion everything you do. And, above all, to be ethical with yourself and other people's time and money as well.
Wow. I think that's the first time that I've heard in the Words of Wisdom segment, be creative and never let that die. And I think we can take it a step further and not only think of it from the perspective of the arts and music and whatnot, like we always think about it, but creative problem solving.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot of creativity and energy to think through some of the trials that we might face and how can we find ourselves on the winning side of that trial once it's all said and done. It is officially 10 o'clock.
Okay.
We have a hard stop, but it has been a pleasure talking to you, Professor Brien Dunn of Louisiana Delta Community College. Thank you all, the watching and listening audience on YouTube Live, for being with us. This is Global Entrepreneurship Week 2022, brought to you by the Louisiana Delta Community College School of Business and Technology. We actually have another one. Yes, it's a double header today again. So stay tuned. Join us at 2 p.m. for Professor Joe Lane, who's also going to talk to us about the importance of entrepreneurship in a general sense. But until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.